Hi everyone, welcome to part B of the site layout example. There are a few updates to the plan at this stage. So all of the plots have been arranged carefully and numbered appropriately for where the house is on the plot. And there's an area indicated around the plot in some way for where the path would be and where the car parking drive area would also be. The site boundary has also been fixed so that the red line goes continuously around that. And then for the footpath radiuses here that were incorrectly drawn on the previous version, those radiuses are now set at 4,500. As we can see there, just from the dimension that appeared momentarily. Um, the dimension I'd used previously just was the wrong dimension for the fillet there. So that's the way the overall site layout is at this point. So what we need to do is color in some various areas here, just as an example. And to enable us to do that, we should first of all add some layers. So we can click on the new layer icon here a number of times. The first one, I'm going to call it GA. For my initials, GA house. And for the color for that, we're going to use kind of a brown color. See if I can find the right one that I had chosen earlier. I wanted to use color number 32, I think. So there it is, okay. The line type and the line weight don't really matter for these because all we're going to use these layers for is for coloring using the hatch tool that we'll show in a moment or two. So another new layer, let's call it GA grass. And the color for this one, I'm referring to a little list I have here. So I've chosen 70 for that one. And then the next layer, we're going to call it GA path for the public footpath area on the site. And for the color for that, I'm going to choose color 254, this one. Another new layer, and we're going to call it GA road, just for the two public roads as such, for Radcliffe Street and for Chambers Street. 252 is the color for this one. Next we're going to choose an area or a layer for an area called GA drive. So this is the paved area or asphalt area, possibly whatever finish you may choose. And for this one, I'm going to choose a yellow color, this one here, just to help distinguish it from other features on the site. Not that I'm proposing a yellow brick road or anything like that, but it's just for color coding purposes. I would assume it wouldn't be necessarily yellow in real life. And then the final one, just at this point, I'm going to call it GA trees. Just to give a different color then for some of the trees that we'll color in momentarily. And for that, I don't know exactly where the color box for this one is, so I know I want to use 94. I'm going to type it in there. And now if we go back in, it'll show us, right, there is where it is on the index color. Okay. So at this stage, I'm not really sure which order to do things in. Doesn't overly matter. Probably best to do some work to the individual plot. So let's go for the house. We'll make that layer current. And for simplicity, I guess we can go ahead and color all of the houses at once. Now these happen to be the plot names centered on the houses as such, so we don't want that text to interfere with the hatching. And we're going to turn that layer off just to allow us to be able to color things in easily. So that layer is still current, and we want to use the hatch tool, which is found on the draw section of the ribbon. click on the hatch tool, and we want to use a pick point option rather than a select. So select will work if you are selecting a boundary. In this case, we could go around and select all the rectangles, but I'm going to use the pick point one. And then there's another little function that I just want to find here. It may be where is it? Is it under the options? Yeah, so under the options section there, we would like to create separate hatches for these particular color elements. It just means that if any of the houses move slightly at a later point, then you're not having to go back and recolor every single element. It means that all of the blocks of color are created as separate elements. So I've already clicked there for the first one, and we can just go around and click for all of the instances where the houses are on the site. Nice and straightforward. It may take a little bit longer than me. I'm going to hit enter now, and that has added those all in. We can turn back on the plot names, and thankfully those are showing over the color. If it happens to appear or not appear, it may be that the text is hidden underneath. So in that case, you could left click on the hatch area, right click with your mouse, and go to draw order and select send to back. It just means then that the color will be sent behind the text. So hopefully your text is showing okay. The next stage then I would like to do is the driveway. So I think it should be straightforward enough to do all the driveway areas in one go. Hopefully AutoCAD will cooperate okay. So where did that layer go? GA drive up there, okay. We're going to choose hatch tool again. It may be necessary just to pan in or pan out, or even double click with the middle mouse button just to get you back to a point where you can see things. Notice that it does give sort of previews of various things here. When you hover over an area, it'll indicate what is going to happen. So we can go around and choose those areas where the driveway and the footpath is for all of the different plots, just to color those in. It means that we know where the hard paving area and driveway area is around each of the houses. For simplicity then, I hit enter just to finish that command again, I suppose. For simplicity, we will go for planting next. So that layer needs to be made current. Now there are a couple of trees just in the way here, so I'm going to turn off the GA planting area. This layer will be turned off. Maybe I made that layer current as opposed to turning off. So I need to go back to the GA grass area. So make sure that you're on the GA grass layer, and then that tree, or those number of trees, have all disappeared. So again, back to the hatch tool, and we can go around picking the various elements of the site here just to show where the grass is. By all means, if you wish, you can use different areas on your site. You can have planting or different other things. If you want to show a trampoline, you can add another layer and add that on top. So there we have a basic layout done for each of the plots. The two remaining elements that need colored here are the footpath and the road. So let's see, I think it's probably best to do the footpath first. So we can turn the planting layer back on, and yeah, you can just make out the trees there. The colors are quite similar, but the layers for the main lines on the drawing, they are all chosen from a different element of the colors. So let's just go back. For GI planting, actually it isn't. Technically that should really be index color 3, so definitely update that. So those colors on the bottom there, these colors here are set to come out as black and white when you use the appropriate plot style. Um, so I'm glad I realized that and fixed it. So we can make out those elements there, and maybe we'll color those trees just in a moment or two. But first of all, let's do the footpath. So on the path layer, now this is where it could become a little bit tricky if you don't have your areas clearly drawn and defined properly. It is very important that you don't have a little gap between the likes of an arc here and a straight line. If you have a gap, just maybe to demonstrate it here, if you have a little bit of a gap and you go to choose a footpath area for the hatch here, when you click in there, it may overspill into other elements like so. Notice that it is also blanked out around the text, so we need to keep that in mind when we're doing that. Now I will just undo if it's going to work. Control Z back to fix that join of the lines there. So let's make sure that we turn off the GA road names layer. Light bulb just turns the layer on and off. Maybe to explain that this layer, this icon, it freezes the layer, and then this one locks the layer. But the light bulb on and off just hides it or makes it visible. So for the path, we can choose the hatch tool, and again, just let's check in terms of the options here. We still have the separate hatches, which is good. So one element of footpath, second element of footpath, and then the third element over here. Remembering that when you're doing your own design, 1.5 meters is sufficient around the edge of the site. So that's pretty straightforward so far. But as I said, you do need to watch out for any overspill elements, and sometimes that can be quite frustrating trying to work that out. It may be that if that happens, you need to trace carefully around and do the hatching in a different way. There is another video showing a more accurate version of the site that will be able to help you with that if that is the case. So the GA road, we're on that layer now. We can again use the hatch and fill in for those two elements there. Now at this stage, it may be worthwhile thinking of some additional elements like trees or cars or various other things to help your site look a bit better. I'm not going to do anything with this sort of public planting area at the bottom here. That's up to you. This is just an example as such, but what I will do is go to the GA trees layer, and I will make that layer current. Maybe just for ease of seeing things properly here, I will hide the grass layer just so we can see a bit more accurately what is going on. And I'm going to try the hatch tool to see what happens using the pick point. And it does fill in quite well. It leaves a little gap here in the middle of the tree. I suppose we should maybe hatch inside that as well if we can. It may or may not work for whatever reason. Give it a go. Yeah, so it is leaving it as a gap. I'm not massively worried about that. But ideally, I suppose what you would do is color that in before you then copy it and move it around to different positions on your site. Now, whether you want that to be mirrored onto another plot like so, maybe you might want to copy those up over a number of plots. It's really up to you whether you want them to be symmetrical or at slightly more random positions. For demonstration purposes anyway, I'm going to copy it up just using the boundary line between the two houses there. So, it's easy to copy those after you've colored them in. The same goes for cars or any other elements. If you're putting on a few cars, don't overdo it. I suggest maybe using a couple of different colors for the cars if you so desire. It's not about demonstrating that you can add cars, it is more to do with your plot as such. So let's turn back on the grass layer, turn back on the road names, and overall that's looking not too bad now. As I said, you can refine it a little bit further by potentially adding cars and a few other elements and fixing this small element of public, uh, well, I was going to say paving, but maybe it is more a planting area with a little bench. I suppose if there is a bench there, you may want an element of paving just around that, and then the rest could be bark or whatever you wish. So that's the end of stage B, colouring in AutoCAD. Thanks for watching.